On today's episode, we install frame rails. Before we get into the installation, why am I doing frame rails to the car? So there's a couple different reasons. First off, my frame rails are pretty hammered. I thought that they were terrible. Stefan has told me otherwise. He's like, I've seen way worse. I've seen them pretty much pancake flat. But my frame rails are really pinched in. But first and foremost, I want to reinforce them because they're in such poor shape. The other reason is it does add chassis rigidity. A lot of what I'm trying to do this winter is get rid of a lot of those vibrations and noises and creaks and rattles that this old chassis has. And then lastly, this does add to some areas that you can jack your car up from. At least that's what I've read on the internet. I don't know if I'll actually end up jacking the car up from those areas. It is another potential benefit there as well. Let's talk about the steps to do the install. So first thing that you would normally need to do is pull out your interior, but I've already done that, as well as the carpet. You don't need to fully gut your interior, let me be clear, to do this. You do need to pull back your carpet and remove your seats because we're going to be drilling from underneath the car. Now, before we even get to mocking the frame rails up, we need to get them to actually fit and cup these frame rails. And what I mean by that is, let me see if I can show you here. So just trying to mock this up, they don't even actually fit around the frame rails. So I need to, believe it or not, actually hammer some of these areas close. And I think what's really happened here is, as I've bottomed out and smashed these frame rails in, it's ballooned the sides out, causing it to be wider than it normally would be. But yeah, let's start by hammering these in, I guess. Woof. All right, now that I've gotten some of the large imperfections out of the way with the hammer, I'm going to use a jack to start pushing it up into place and see how close we are. All right, quick tip. You gotta install the correct frame rail on the correct side. Thought I had that done correctly, but I didn't. I just double checked Garage Stars photos online, and what I thought I was supposed to do is match this line right here with this right here. Something that looked kind of like that. Wrong.
It's false. No way. Not this time. No, you're wrong. Not a chance.
There's a much more gradual taper on the far side. So this is actually the passenger side frame rail. And this is the driver's side. I have no room in here. So let's get the right side on the right side. That'll help, right? Hopefully. All right, we're done here, right? We're done, right? Okay, now to measure, make sure this is in the right spot. So right here is that angle that I thought was supposed to be facing on the outside. We've got to take up that, what, ½ inch maybe? All right, that can't be much better up there. There's definitely gonna be some space between the OEM frame rails and the new one. Part of that I think is just because it's been compressed up. The other part is there does need to be some space in there to fit around the stock ones. So, time to drill. Oh. I've done this also for my roll bar and it just doesn't feel right to drill in. I am gonna skip one hole. right here, there's a hole that actually sits underneath my seat rail right here. And I don't feel like fussing with it. Skipping one of these is not going to be the end of the world. I just don't feel like drilling a hole underneath this and having to get in there and whatnot. So I'm going to opt out of that one. But we're going to drill the rest. Ah! There it is! There's a hole! Ah! Ha! I've got a bunch of holes in my car now. Now that I cleaned up the holes from the top, I'm just gonna take a little paint and shoot it down there just so we can cover up as much of that exposed metal as possible. I don't want this to rust at all, or any of these holes to rust, so just got some white paint. We're gonna hit it from the top. We're also gonna hit it from down below as well, but we're gonna start up here at the top. I'm actually gonna take the frame rail off and then underneath paint beneath it. We really wanna make sure that this is just watertight as well, which I'll address here soon. Taking a little extra step here as well. Some of these scrapes really opened up the bottom of these frame rails for rust. So I went ahead and knocked back some of that surface rust, and we're gonna actually paint over that before we put these officially on the car. Spots like this right here, definitely just been scraped over and over and over again. So I wanted to just take that superficial rust off, and then we'll use some of that tractor paint that I'd use in the Focus, which seemed to have really good luck. So knocking this stuff back now, and we'll grab that tractor paint here in just a moment. So, pretty happy with how this turned out. Paint is on. Now that we got all the paint up on there that I want to, we're gonna let this side dry and get started on mocking up the other side. So pretty much the same thing on the other side. I'm gonna do it all off camera just to save time. The only difference is there's some fuel lines over there that we have to move out of the way, but everything is pretty much the same. Now, before we install these for the last time, I'm actually gonna go in and I'm going to put some gasket maker around each one of these holes. I don't want any water working its way into the cabin, or more importantly, into the frame of the car itself. So I'm gonna put a bead around each one of these holes, and then we're gonna sandwich it together as we install it. So let me throw some gasket maker around these holes. All right, those came out pretty messy, but we're just gonna roll with it. I didn't want to put it on the tray and then put it up to the top because it would smear everywhere, but it's gonna smear everywhere either way at this point, so we're just gonna roll with it. Moment of truth. Do the holes line up? Oh, that looks pretty good. Oh, that looks pretty good. Let's see. Yes! Victory. So this is the hardware that came with the kit. Now, it came with enough washers to do one each. So by design, from the top going down, bolt, washer, body of the car, and then lock nut. Now, I saw a lot of other kits on the internet, and they had two washers. They were kind of sandwiching from both sides. So I went ahead and was extra. And I got some other washers to also put underneath the car. I want to do this once, and I want to do it right. Well, after we tightened everything down, I went ahead and painted the hardware as well as the frame rail itself. I didn't really need to do this. A lot of people don't, but I wanted to paint the hardware just to add that protection. You know, I do drive this car almost 6 months out of the year in the rain and stuff like that. So just trying to add as much protection as possible. I want to highlight the solution that I came up with on this side of the frame rail. So on this side, you uniquely have to deal with these lines. So fuel line, brake lines, and they are a bitch to deal with. Some of the kits include like different spacers that come with them. Stefan had done a kit similar, didn't include it, but he like kind of zip tied out of the way. But I was actually able to take what was already here, flip it upside down, and use them still. So you had these plastic ones on either end that were just kind of sitting, just separating the lines, but then you had these other ones that were actually bolted in. So I bent them down kind of away because they connect back here. Bolted them there, and then bent this up. Did that on both of these. And that has created a nice spacing from these nuts, because before these lines were actually bumping up against the hardware here, and I just did not like the look of that. It was gonna scratch its way through these lines, and I was gonna have a big problem on my hands. So these are spaced away enough, and then this one down here, one second, is straddling the hardware, and I actually used some zip ties to make sure that they were up and tucked away. Now that's not gonna fall down into that crevice and hit that hardware in there. So the other thing too, when doing this fuel filter back here, you can loosen this and slide the fuel filter back and forth. And if you do that, you can actually adjust where this line sits in here. So I was able to loosen this fuel filter up, push it out this way, so we were able to move this line out of the way. So a bit of a job on this side. I'm not gonna lie, I got pretty frustrated on this side, but I'm really happy with how it's turned out. If you have any questions on how to do this, just leave a comment down below. I'm happy to help you through it. You're not alone. I just didn't want, use zip ties and possibly be rubbing these lines up against here. This is going to be a really good solution. And I mean, it's not the cleanest. My my gasket maker kind of got the best of me back here when I was installing it. But overall, I'm pretty pleased with how this turned out. And that brings us to the end of the episode. So these are frame rails on the car. I am so happy that I'll be finally putting this sad looking interior back together. It's totally gutted still, for reference. And the first thing that I'll be doing is working on some stuff behind the dash and then installing the new carpet. So we're kind of at an all-time teardown point, and from here on out, we're putting stuff back together, seeing how a lot of these things came out with like the flocking of the dash and stuff like that. So stay tuned. That'll be the next episode. You know the deal. Subscribe down below. If you have any comments, recommendations for what's coming or what I did this episode, let us know. We're happy to hear your feedback. And as always, thanks for watching and stay tuned. Ugh.
Whoop.